And we're live.
Yay. Hey,
Hello, everyone. We're here with the super talented, the logo maestro himself, Mr. Ian Paget.
Hi, everybody.
Definitely not Paget, as we
definitely
were
not
discussing.
Paget. It's definitely Paget. It's good to see everyone. Thanks, everyone, for coming on live. I know, Paul, you just said it's 1 a.m. where you are. So if anyone's up at stupid hours, thanks for coming on. Very much appreciated.
Appreciate everyone here, but yeah, all of you Aussies, Paul, you're going to be like the best educated, most sleepy man in the design community at the rate you're going. But great to see everyone. Can everyone in the office, just before we jump in, give it up for Ian?
Thanks, everyone.
And can everyone tuning in live just let us know in the comments if you can see and hear us okay? That's always a good start. No technical issues.
Hopefully not.
Yes, we can see and hear.
Good stuff.
Awesome. And it's almost like there's not a giant delay. Often we do these and there's a 10-second delay, which is little awkward when you're kind of waiting.
Is it because we're in the same country, maybe?
Maybe it is. And always nice to have a Brit on, because we do seem to talk to an awful lot of Americans day in, day out.
Same.
So good to mix it up. Ian, I'd love if you could share, like in 30 seconds, a bit of a summary of who you are and what you do for the minute number of people who might not know you.
Okay, so my name's Ian Paget, and online people best know me as Logo Geek because I specialise in logo design, but I also run a community and podcast as well for anyone that's interested in logo design, and that's all under Logo Geek.
Love it. That was very succinct. Everyone, we're obviously going to link up Ian's stuff during and at the end, but I highly recommend checking out Logo Geek. It's a tremendous resource, and you're a perfect example in my mind of someone that's really niched in design. Yeah. Like, you really own that space, and I think you've got quite a lot of notoriety in the logo design space rather than just spreading yourself across all disciplines.
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting topic in its own right, because I mean, as a graphic designer, obviously I can do everything, but because I started Logo Geek as a side venture, that's the only reason why it is so focused. And I've just left it that way because it's called Logo Geek. I can't really do anything else. Cheers for that.
Tied your own hands.
I have.
In fact, I am just going to add, I'm going to add a link to your website in the chat. So everyone,
if you're done that for us as well.
Amazing.
Cheers.
Yeah, you've got shiny green button below the video, guys. So if you do want to check out Logo Geek while we're chatting, definitely do so. Ian, what are you going to be sharing with us today? Because I've got a feeling this is going to be one of our most valuable sessions yet.
Hopefully. So one of the problems I see a lot of logo designers have is that they are not provided with enough information at the start of their logo design project, and they tend to either go with what the client's given them, which is very little, or they start designing something purely based on the name of the company or their own personal tastes and aesthetics and stuff like that. But what I want to teach you guys is how I personally work on logo design, and how I go about working with the client at the beginning of a project to create a brief. And I call it a goal-based logo design brief, and that's the way that I work. I know you hear a lot of people online talking about strategy. I don't do strategy sessions as such, but what I do is I run through a series of questions that does create a strategy. So that where this helps you is that you have goals that you can focus on whilst you're working on your logo project, and is also something that you can go back to and present as well. So I've got a few slides for you. So Tom, are you happy for me to just jump straight in, or?
I am. Let's jump into the meat of it.
Okay, so I need to share my screen.
I've got a guilty confession, by the way. I feel like I should have been a logo designer in another life, because between you and Jacob Cass, I'm just becoming obsessed every time I see your work on Instagram. I'm like, I just want to go and make logos now.
No, it's a really fascinating subject. Like, the only reason why I started Logo Geek is because I had an interest in illustration and the technical side of graphic design, and I just started reading more and more books, and I just keep learning stuff, and there's more that I can learn every single day. And I don't know if you guys can see behind me, I have loads of books. I've read as many as I can on logo design, so hopefully I can give some of that back to you guys. So I'm just going to open up my presentation.
Perfect. And as always, everyone who is here tuned in live, use the ask a question bit below this video. Pop any questions in while he's talking, and either I'll fill them to him as we go, or we're going to do some dedicated Q&A near the end.
Yeah, because now I've actually shared my screen. I can't see any of the comments or video or anything like that. So
I'll let you know what people are saying. I'm sure it's all going to be nice. In fact, let's get a bit of activity in the comments section, guys. So leave a little comment if you are interested in logo design. Just say yes, and perhaps let us know what about it interests you or what you're looking to learn.
I've personally found that pretty much every single graphic designer has a real passion for logo design, and I feel quite fortunate because there's a lot of graphic designers out there that would love to completely specialize in logo design, and I'm pretty much at that point now where I could spend all of my time working on logos if I wanted to.
Yeah, I get that. So totally get that. Your shirt takes some love, by the way. Yeah. People love the dinosaur shirt.
I love this shirt. It's a proper nerdy one.
I'm actually just seeing black on your screen. Is that right?
Really?
Or... Yeah, because we tested this before. Oh, here it is. Something's just popped up. There we go.
Is it because I'm... Hang on. So if I press play...
Yeah.
Is it gone black now?
It has.
Oh, that's weird.
That's very strange. Are you okay if we just go like this?
Yeah. I'll work through in this way.
Amazing. Thank you.
Okay. So within this training course, what I'm going to run through is what information you need to gather when working on a logo design brief. So I'm just going to skip that slide. So there's a number of benefits to having a proper logo design brief, and we go through these now. So firstly, you have a really clear understanding of what's needed. You and your client are on the same page, and I feel that's one of the most important things, because a lot of graphic designers, they jump straight into their logo design and it might not be what the client actually needs. And I've also had situations where partway through the project, someone else comes in, so they might partner up with someone else, and it becomes a real problem if that person has different needs. So having a brief in the way that I do it and having it agreed by the client, it makes sure that all the way through the entire process, you and your client are on the same page. So if someone else does come along at a later date, you can keep in control of the whole process. Yeah. Working in this way, you can also back up any choice that you make through the entire process. So you're not just randomly choosing colors or fonts or styles and so on. You can back up everything that you're doing and make really informed choices. All of your work, all of your logos are much more likely to be approved as well, because what you're doing is you're working towards goals and you're presenting with goals as well. So they're much more likely to be approved by the client. And because you are working towards achieving specific goals, they're also more likely to succeed in the real world as well. And because it succeeds, and because everything gets approved by the client, and you've got a very happy customer on your hand, you're going to get more testimonials and more clients referring projects to you as well.
Amazing.
So I really want to stress
all of that sounds good.
Fantastic. So I really want to stress the importance of a brief. It's either success or failure. If you have a poor design brief or no design brief, it means that you do not understand what you're trying to achieve, and the work that you do is going to be rejected. Now, that's not just in the case of logo design, that's any graphic design where you need a proper brief. Whilst on the other hand, if you have all the information that you need and you have a proper understanding of those goals, your work's going to be approved. And the reason why it's going to be approved, because you understand what the goals are and you've achieved them and presented to the client in that way.
Love it. Ian, we just had a great question from Joshua saying, will this presentation be made available? I know the replay of this will be. No pressure at all. I know you're looking to turn this into
I'm happy to share it. So yeah, it's fine with me. So we can share that afterwards.
Okay.
What I do is I'll export it out as a PDF and then I'll ping it over to you and you can share it out to any of the guys. That would
be incredible. Would you be willing to let us kind of put that on the platform and fully credit you and be like, Ian's provided this within our Learn section, maybe?
Yeah, no worries. That's fine.
Okay. We got Raluca over there. Raluca,
We can sort that afterwards.
amazing content from Ian here, so talk to me afterwards.
Yeah, sure. So the way that you go about creating a brief is either using like a questionnaire or a conversation. And the way that you create a questionnaire is there's so many different ways that you can do it, but the most common ways are, using something like a Word document or using something like an interactive PDF is what I do. And what I love about interactive PDFs is that you can style it all up and you can have it exactly how you want it. You can easily email it to your client. They can send it back to you. And I've had clients that have literally printed that out as well. So for me, that's been the most effective way. And also you could do it as an online form. I know Google's got a fantastic solution for that, but I mean, it's entirely up to you. But basically, if you're going to gather together all of the information that you need via a questionnaire, this is the best way to do it. Alternatively, you can have a conversation, and this is probably the best way to do it if you can choose between the two options, because with a questionnaire you can dig deeper into the person's answers, but all of the questions that I put together here, I really want to stress, when you do have a conversation with the client, don't just simply go question, answer, question, answer, question, answer. Actually have a conversation and let it flow, but use the questions as a guide just to make sure that you have all of the information that you need. But like I said, don't just simply ask question, let them reply, ask the next question, because you really want to be able to dig into it and let the conversation flow. So if the end of what they say leads on nicely to another question, that would be the best time to ask it. So hopefully that makes sense.
It does. I was talking to Chris Doe recently, and he talked, I think, about diagnosing. So it's the fact you're having that conversation, but really it's almost like a doctor getting to the root of what the problem is for their brand.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've heard a few people talk about this type of things. It happens a lot in sales. Sometimes people come to you with a problem, but you need to dig deeper to really understand what's actually happening, and you can solve problems in a different way. Logo design, when people come to you for a logo design, they do pretty much want a logo, but there might be a greater identity or different requirements that they do need. So you can find out with these conversations as well, and make potential upsells. So to create a brief, there's 3 areas that you need to understand. You want to understand the business, the competition, and the audience. So I have questions for each one of those that I put together to make sure that I have all of the information I need. So for the business, the first question I ask is pretty obvious. What is the name of your company? And by the point that you're actually having these conversations, you should already have that information from your client. Now, I also like to ask if the company has a tagline or slogan. This isn't necessarily to include it in the logo itself, although I do have some clients that need that. Typically, what I will explain to the client is that if they do have a tagline or slogan, I prefer them to use it as like a supporting element within their brand and not strapped to the logo. But if they did want it strapped to the logo, I'll do a version with and without. But what I find, taglines, usually the company has spent a lot of time to think about what this might be, and there might be something about the tagline itself that you might be able to use in the logo. So it's a really useful question to ask.
Mm-hmm.
The next one is to understand what products or services they provide. So again, you really need to understand what they're actually offering, and that's so that you can properly represent the business within the logo. Or if it's a product, you can understand as much as you can about the product to understand who it's serving, how it's going to be used, how that logo might be used on that product, and so on.
Love it. And we've got loads of questions starting to come in as well.
Okay. So this question is more related to companies that require a redesign. So the question is, if you're not a new business startup, what are the reasons that you want a new logo? And this is one of those questions that can really vary, and based on the answer, you would do different things. So a lot of my clients, they come to me because they've used one of these online creator tools, or they've done a DIY job, and they need a completely new redesign because they want to look a lot more established. And then like on the other end of the spectrum, you might have people that have been in business for like 20 or 30 years, and they got new management, they restructured internally, and they just want the logo modernized. So based on that answer, you would do different things. So it's definitely important to understand that.
And I guess you would do different things with the logo itself, but you'd probably do different things with the conversations you had with the client and how you present.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, you would want to gather more information together, because if they have been established for a long time and they've been through multiple versions of a logo over the last 20 years, you might want to gather together all of the collateral that they've done over the years to understand how their logo has evolved. Because there's been companies like CoOp. So I go back to that question. There's been companies like CoOp that have redesigned, and they've actually, with their branding, they've gone back to the original logo. And if the company didn't do all of that research and collate all of that information from the client and understand the reasons why they were redesigning their logo, they would never have went back to the roots. And I mean, there's more to it than just the logo. It's more about looking like a supermarket that do everything the way that it used to be done. There's something very I don't know what the word is, but quite nostalgic about that, and I think they've taken advantage of that.
I totally agree, although that's got to be a dream project, isn't it? It's like, use the old one. That'll be 50 grand.
Yeah. I'll be honest, the questions that I'm running through here now are more for, the day-to-day projects that I'm talking about. Something like CoOp, that's a much bigger process. And you although you would want to know this information, you would probably take a different approach at that level. But like I said, most graphic designers that I speak to, they're working with the average business like I do. And these are the type of questions that I ask.
Love it.
So I also like to ask if there's a unique story behind the business. And not all customers have this. Some of them just started the business because they want to make money, and that's fair enough. But sometimes I've worked with clients where they've been able to share this really amazing story about how they started it, with the family and stuff like that. And that story alone has sparked ideas for what an icon could be, or what a symbol could be for the business. So I really love to find out if there is an interesting story but behind what they're doing. And again, this is another really important question, but I like to find out where the company will see themselves in 5 years' time. And I feel this is more important for startups in particular, because there might be situations where here today they just have the one product or service and they're a one-man band, but they might see themselves in 5 years' time as having a whole range of products and having like 5 stores or whatever. And so what that would mean is that you're creating a logo not just for today, but that's going to have legs for the company. And what I mean by that is going to be sufficiently versatile and sufficiently like it would properly represent the business. So just as one example, if they are a company selling shoes, I'm not saying this is a good way to do it, but say if you was to put a shoe in the logo, but then in 5 years' time they have a whole range of products, suddenly that logo is not really going to work for the company in 5 years' time. So it's just to make sure that you're designing a logo that's going to last them throughout the whole of their business for at least 5 years.
Yeah. And I guess it's more about their values than specifically what they're offering.
Well, I like to just understand where they just generally see themselves in 5 years' time, because like I said, I mean, if you're starting a business today, most people that come to me for a logo are startups, and they're just starting in their back office or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
here today, they might just have a website, but a few years down the line, they might be expecting to have a store. Now, with something like a store, there's physical requirements that you would need the logo to be. So, for example, like on a website, you have no requirements, no fixed ratio, no fixed scales or anything like that for the business, other than possibly creating it letterbox so that it letterbox size, rectangular, so that it does work at a website header. But if you know that it's going to be going on a storefront and on things like bags and stuff like that, you might want to come up with a different solution to what you would do if you know that it was just going to be a website here today. So it's just understanding what the requirements might be.
Yeah, definitely.
Also, I like to ask where the logo will be used. And a lot of the time, this is fairly obvious. Like, you will generally find that people want to use it on their website or on stationery. But there might be scenarios, like I said, about like a shop exterior, or they might want to use it on physical products, or they might just only plan to focus primarily on social media. And based on that information, you would want to do different things. Because if it's just primarily going to be used on social media, you need to make sure that logo works at that 8mm square size. And to be really
as an icon versus on a giant billboard or something like that.
And on things like products, products, maybe this logo is actually going to be stamped on the product in some way. But what if there's certain size requirements? You need to understand all of this information to make sure that when you are creating a logo, that it will be sufficiently versatile for to work on those products, to work on things like stationery, to work on online. And also there might be situations where, if you know that it's only going to be used online and only going to be used on social media and never used in print, you don't need to worry about making it work in single color. There's things like that. So it's worth considering that, because I see Firefox released a new logo about 2 days ago. And I saw someone ask the question, how will this work in grayscale? And Firefox is a web-based company. It's a browser, and I mean they do a whole load of other things as well. But I don't know how much print-based stuff they do. And so
probably
as a graphic designer, you don't need to worry about all the old trends and all the old ways of doing it, because you're completely free to do anything that you want. So that's why you need to know that information.
I did see a great comment from F's, I think it's pronounced.
Sure.
But they said scalable, memorable, and simple. 3 good characteristics of a successful logo.
Absolutely. Completely agree with that.
And I actually made a logo recently for my personal trainer. So this was like a foray back into this. And it looked nice. But Jacob Cass pointed out, when I shrunk it down really small, it lost a bit of the detail and it didn't hold up so much. And I'd forgotten the scalable aspect. So I think you need those 3, don't you?
Yeah, being versatile is one of the most important things for a logo, especially if you know that it is going to be used at those smaller sizes. It's all context at the end of the day with logo design, and I think that's what people forget. Because I saw someone yesterday comment online about trends and how you should never use trends in logo design, and that's true 99% of the time. But I saw a branding project released fairly recently for the Spice Girls tour, and they released their logo, and that logo used trends of the 90s. And
that's
so that it's all down to context. You're finding a solution to meet certain criteria, and 99% of projects do need to be timeless, do need to be versatile and stuff like that. But it's not set in stone rules. It's all down to what the brief is. So that's why I'm going through this course now.
Love it.
Okay, so now we're moving on to understanding the competition. So I like to ask straight out, like, who are your main competitors? And generally, a lot of the time, I've got really good clients, and they do provide all of this information. Like, they should know this off the top of their head. I also like to do my own research on top of this as well, just to check online who they are. But the main reason why I asked this question is because when you design a logo, you want to differentiate from the competition. And what you can do is you can check how all these companies look, see what their colors are used, what fonts are used, what icons are used, and you can make sure that you're not unintentionally making this company look like one of their main competitors. You want to differentiate from them. So that could be in color or, style or whatever that might be. But it's really, really, really important that you understand who the competitors are.
That's funny you say that, because I remember so clearly when I started Design Cuts, I actually physically printed all the logos of all our competitors and I put them in a semicircle around me on the floor. And I worked out how to find a unique color palette that wasn't like any of them, because I didn't want to just be associated with any of the existing people.
Yeah, it's the best way to do it. Just look at all the competitors and do something different. I mean, there is more to it than that. Because you can choose the color based on certain things, but a lot of the time people just want to look different from their competitors, and as long as that color aligns with the business in some way and isn't totally inappropriate, that's the quickest way to do it.
Yeah, if you're like, all the other funeral parlors are using jet black, so I'm going to go hot pink.
Sometimes, in some cases, it might work. Okay, I also like to ask what differentiates you from the competition, and I always find this question interesting because a lot of the time they can't answer this question properly. But if there is something specific that does differentiate the business from their competition, whether it's that their approach or how the product works in some way, there might be something to that question that will give you a load of ideas for what you could potentially do. So it's good to understand if there's any unique selling points or anything about the business that you could leverage in some way. And the next question is, and you might get similar answers to my previous question, but why should your audience choose you over the competition? And if they haven't mentioned anything already, like in the previous question, this is where they might expand on that. So it's definitely worth asking this one. So now I want to move on to the audience. So again, I just want to ask the client, who is your target audience? And this is one of those questions where I've had so many instances where I've had clients come back to me and say, everyone is my target audience.
Oh, no.
And they've not been able to pinpoint who it is, because there are people out there that just think, oh, yeah, I just want to target everyone with money, basically. But as a designer, you want to know more information. So my next question will dig a little bit deeper into that. I was working on a brief earlier, and it's really interesting, the answers to these two questions, because the previous one is quite broad. They might say specific demographics that they want to target, or certain age ranges and so on. But when you ask them to describe their ideal customer, this is going into a specific persona, finding out their age range, education, job, income, location, where do they shop, what do they dress, what do they care about. Dig into as much information as you can about the ideal customer, and that will really help you, because when you're creating this logo, you can create a logo that will target that specific audience. You're not creating something that's broad, because no one targets everybody. Everyone has some kind of target audience. So understanding that information, you can make choices when you're working on the logo that doesn't just represent the business in the proper way, but also targets this audience. So understanding who that customer is really useful for you.
Well, I think it's the same in business and logo design, right? If you try and target everyone, you become invisible, you target no one. And I love in both practices going really, really deep and specific on your target audience, so it resonates really hard with them, and almost forgetting about everyone else, because you don't care about the people that you don't want to be targeting. You just want to really, really aim with the people you do want to target.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's interesting with this question, I find it easier when there is a niche audience. Like as graphic designers ourselves, I've got friends that really niche down in their services, people that would say target certain audiences, that makes it so much easier from a marketing perspective as well. And that's slightly off topic to this, but as a graphic designer, it's worth doing this type of thing as well for your own business.
Definitely.
And the next question I like to ask, what is the overall message that you want to convey to your audience? So at this stage, the customer's given you loads of information about their business and you understand their audience, but asking this question gets them to really hone that down. And it's interesting what they share in this case, because it's going to be everything that they've given to you really condensed down into a few words. And I find it one of the most valuable questions because you can make sure that within the logo and broader identity, if you're creating the full brand identity, you can make sure that you can leverage this message within what you do. And again, I love this question. What words do you want your audience to associate with your company? And I personally find this one of my favorite questions and one of the most useful. Because, for example, if they was to come to you and say, I want this to be really fun, funky, educational, you do something completely different than if you was to say professional, slick, and clean. Just those words on their own help you to visualize the type of look and feel that they would want to go for. So for me, of all the questions I've asked so far, I find this is one of the most effective to ask to make sure that you create a solution that is going to be agreed by your customer. Now, I'm going to move on to personal preference, and I know most graphic designers are going to scream out about this question because although we're creating a solution for a specific business target audience and to compete with their competition, the customer's personal preference in reality is completely irrelevant. We actually don't need to know that, but because the client's paying us to do this job and because they're the person that's going to be agreeing it, it's useful to know what their preferences and expectations are at the beginning of the project. If you don't understand what this is and they have specific requirements or specific tastes or whatever, you're not going to get the project agreed by them.
Yeah. And can I just add to this? Because I know
sure.
that a few people in our space who are currently preaching things like, if you were having a client interaction of this nature, you don't say to the client, what do you think? And leave it open-ended. Yeah. It's more like, do you feel this meets our objectives?
Yes. Yeah.
And I think on paper, yes, that's great. And that can be effective. But in the real world, I've certainly had cases where it definitely meets the objectives, but their personal biases come in. And like you say, they're the one with the money. And so as much as we all want to be fully in control of the situation and say, well, your opinion doesn't matter, we met the objective, now pay me, that's not always reality. There will be cases where that overshadows everything else and you actually have to kind of succumb to that, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, going back to this question, it's also your opportunity to have a conversation now rather than do some work that's ignoring what they've said and trying to get them to agree it. Because what you can do is you can have a conversation with them now and let them know, this specific style that you're requesting based on this, and this, I would advise to do something different. Would you be happy for me to take that route, or are you quite persistent on going this direction? And you can find that out straight away, and you can make the choice whether you want to work on that project or not.
And do you get them to put together a mood board or some kind of visual thing where it's like, can you pull together designs that you love? And then you'd be able to say, well, great that you love them, but they're actually very different stylistically from what you've told me in the brief.
You could take that approach. I mean, personally, most of the time when I've had a conversation like I just mentioned, they've literally said, I'm happy to take your advice. And also in those cases where they do have specific requirements, yes, it's useful to get to gather together certain things. What I have done is presented different options. So I actually had a client about 6 months ago that specifically wanted something. So what I did for him is I did 2 options. I did one exactly what he wanted, and then I did a second one with the direction that I would recommend based on all the information gathered. And he made me laugh on the phone because he said he's shown his son, and his son literally said, that one's, the one that he wanted, his kid literally said it was really bad, and they ended up going with what I suggested. So that's one of the best ways of getting around those clients that do have bad taste. So like I said, so like I said, personal preference, in reality you don't need to know it, but because they are paying you and they are the person that's going to be agreeing it, it's definitely worth knowing what their expectations are. So Perfect. There's a few questions that I ask to find this out. So
guys, I think this is really, really, really useful. So everyone in the comments, just leave a quick comment saying yes or something like that. If you're finding the information useful, but I think everyone should be scribbling a lot of notes right now. If you're doing client work, this is really invaluable stuff that you can implement straight away.
That's what I was hoping. So in terms of personal preference, this first question is, what brands or logos, regardless of the industry, capture a similar look and feel to what you're going for? And although I'm not directly asking the client what they want, this question, they will gather together examples of the type of things that they like. And, it just helps me to understand the type of look and feel that they would probably agree. But it's also useful to, understand the type of identity that they're looking for. Because, for example, I'm working on a new project at the moment, and they've given me a list of brands, and it's helping me to understand the whole aesthetic that they're going for. So, even if it's a difficult client or not, this question is a really good question to get an answer to. And like I said, provide examples. So any example that they're given, make sure that they provide examples to you.
Perfect. By the way, Ian, the comments were slightly quiet, which is why I wanted to check everyone was there. And they now exploded, and people said, I think they were quiet because Kim said she's writing like a mad woman.
Oh, good.
Said that her hand hurts from scribbling. So I think you've got a lot of quiet people here taking copious notes, which is
good.
Awesome.
Okay, so the next question is, are there any fonts or colors or images that you would like to be used in the logo? So again, this is just understanding expectations of what the client is expecting from you, and you can understand what their specific tastes are. And I also like to ask if there's any that they would like to avoid. I think the second question of finding out what they want to avoid is actually more important, because the last thing that you want to do is present something that has something that they really hate in it, because they're never going to agree it. So avoid those. The rest of it, again, if anything that they've said doesn't align with the goals that you've already put together, or all of the information that you put together, this is a good chance to have a conversation. So, for example, they might have requested specific fonts. You can have a conversation and explain why you feel that doesn't work, but hopefully that doesn't happen.
Perfect.
So, right. So now we got all of the information from the client, whether it's through a questionnaire or through a conversation. And what I now do is I get all of that information and I basically process it and I put it down into a list of goals. So I've actually worked on projects in the past where I haven't done this, but I find doing this really important, especially in cases where sometimes you might get 2 responses on questions and the responses contradict each other. So, for example, they might say professional and serious, they're total polar opposites. And you can, if you do have that situation, you can have a conversation with the client to understand which side of that they meant, and you can, get rid of any information that doesn't seem relevant to the goals. So I'm going to show you an example from a recent project. And as you can see, what I'm doing is I'm taking all the information and putting it down into a actionable list. And this just makes the information really easy to digest for your client. You know, they can read through this and just double check that everything looks good. But when you're working on the logo itself, you can go back to this list. And I use it like a tick list. So these goals, there's a few pages of this. But I will work on logos. I'll put together loads of ideas. And then what I'll do is I'll go back to that list and just make sure that I'm meeting that criteria. So it's a good reference point. And also, like I said, these goals, when you're presenting, you can pick out certain features when you're presenting those logos to the client. Presentation is a completely separate topic, but I say that now because the reason why I would do a brief in this way is so that I can get it agreed in writing. So when I do come to presentation point, I can reference back to that and make sure that
that's a very key tip, everyone. It's so powerful. I've seen this time and time again because people have selective memory, especially clients. They can actually forget what they told you. Whereas if you're like, here's exactly what we agreed and the objectives, and you show it back to them, it's indisputable.
Yeah, that's exactly the reason why I'm writing this down and I'm going to get it agreed by my client. Again, because sometimes they might miss off information. I've had that before. You know, put all this together, send it over to the client, and they come back to me and said, actually, we need a bit more of this, or can we just change that bit, and so on. So it's good to put it down in writing. So I'm not going to read through this, but you can. It's just to show you. So this was for a company called British Overland, and the next point explains what they did. It explains the tagline. So you can see this one: life should be full of adventures. Immediately, that helps you to imagine how this business might look. You know, that it's very adventurous. And you can see I just go on. So here we've got, all the businesses that they compete with. So I can make sure to research those. It's how the company is differentiated, what type of imagery that the client is expecting in it, the target audience that I'm working to attract towards this logo. I know that it needs to work effectively on social media and a website, but also that it needs to be used in print as well. But you can see it's all of the information, but I've basically just taken it, processed it, and broken it down into bullet points. And that takes me, an hour or two to put all that together. But it just means that I can run through that easily and I can present it back to the client as well to get it agreed.
Yeah. And we've touched quite a lot on all of this detail and questionnaires and briefs being invaluable for avoiding headaches further down the line and keeping the client happy. But I've actually found historically doing this myself, it really helps you to hit that flow state in terms of creativity, because you essentially hit the ground running because you've got so much direction. You don't get that creative block as much. And more ideas as a result of actually listening to the client. You've got loads of ideas that have arisen, and you can literally just charge into the project a lot easier than if you had no direction.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly the reason why I do this, because I see so many graphic designers, they will go, oh my God, I don't know what to do with this. I can't think of anything. But with these goals I spoke about here, understanding that this is, that you can hire out a fully equipped Land Rover Defender and that it's life full of adventures. Immediately you can create mood boards that might pull out adventurous pictures, and you can pull out images of Land Rovers and things to do with the UK and Europe. So I mean, it's got British in the name here, so I find it useful to pull together lots of different imagery and create mood boards that I feel would be relevant for this business, and that just helps so many ideas come along. And I think that's where a lot of designers go wrong, is that they just don't have any information from the client, so they're properly stuck. So that's the reason why I do everything the way that I do. So moving on to the last part of this presentation, it's basically getting approval from the client. And The reason why is so that you and your client are both working towards the same goals. Because I've had this so many times where, you know, you might be working on a project for a month or two, or that length of time might go, you know, from when you started the project, and the client might just change their mind on something. You know, they might suddenly think, oh, I don't want to target that type of person. I want to target this one. And that's the worst thing that you want to happen, because it means that you spend, you know, a month working on a project that's no longer relevant. Whilst having it down in writing and having it agreed, you have the ground as a graphic designer to professionally say to the client, these are the goals that we're working towards. So because I've spent the last few months working on this, the work's no longer relevant. So I need to go back to the start of the process again. And because you, Mr. Customer, changed your mind, there would be a cost to that, because there's an increased amount of work, and you have the grounds to say that, and the client can't argue with it because it's all written down in writing. It's clear to them that it's been agreed. You know, you have everything down in writing to back up anything that you might say. So it just keeps you in control. And
yeah,
like I said,
to use Ian Barnard, my dear friend's builder example, which he always loves. Imagine if you had a build around your house and you hired them to build a conservatory, and then halfway through you're like, actually, I don't want a conservatory, I want an indoor swimming pool.
Yeah.
Like, of course it would incur additional charges, so don't be afraid to ask for that.
Yeah.
That is what you should do.
But I just think having it down and writing and making it very clear from the beginning that you're working towards these goals, and you've got them agreed in writing, not only does it make sure that you are on the same page, but it also sends the message that you're creating a solution to problems. So when it comes around to presentations, they can look at the work objectively rather than subjectively. And subjective opinions is where everything goes wrong. Any problem client I've had, it's become a problem because I'm working towards achieving goals whilst they don't personally like it based on their personal taste. So working in this way, although you can't entirely avoid that situation because that's always going to happen, and you know, you guys watching have probably had that situation, but working in this way encourages objective opinions. And if you present in the same way, if you reference the goals and work in that way, you should get your work agreed, and the client should be looking at it objectively in the same way that you are.
100%. Ian, can I ask a huge favor?
Sure.
So I can see there's a ton of questions coming in.
Yeah.
And we possibly have to finish on time today, so we might only
so I'll stop sharing. I'll stop sharing.
Well, I was going to say, if there is more, I'd love to keep going through this. Would you be willing to answer a few questions within our Facebook group?
Yeah, sure. Of course.
Because I'd love to get the people that have asked questions just to jump there, and then we can get some threads going. But that would be amazingly appreciated. Thank you.
Sure. So just before I jump back, because I'm pretty much at the end of this, but I wanted to share with you the email that I actually send. So because I'm working on logo design, all my processes are the same. So I have a whole load of template emails. So I processed the entire thing. So this is an email that I copy and paste. So, hi client, I hope you're well. As discussed, following on from our meeting on Friday, I have put together a list of goals which I will use as a reference point for the logo design. Can you run through this, and if required, add any expectations you have or anything else which may influence the designs presented to you? So this is the client's opportunity to run through everything that you put together and just update it as needed. And you guys can screenshot this and you know, modify it as needed for your own process. But I like to make sure that the client agrees this. I have proof in writing that they've agreed it, and also I try to make it clear within this email that I am referencing this list when I'm designing and when I present to you. So when I'm working through everything, like I said about, you know, objective opinions and subjective opinions, this keeps the client on the side of looking at everything objectively, because logo design shouldn't be a piece of art that they like. It should be something that performs for them, and this just helps them to ensure that way. So should I stop sharing and we'll answer some of the questions that people are asking?
Yes. Are you happy if we do like super quick fire?
Yeah, sure.
So it might, and sorry, I could actually talk to you all day about this stuff. Being brutally honest here, one of our team is basically leaving us to go and work remotely for us halfway around the world. So while she's going to keep being part of the team, I might never ever see her again. So I need to say a proper goodbye.
Yeah, I understand.
Cool. You hear that, Mariana? You're disrupting everything.
Need to go over and give her a hug.
You know what? I did not know that. I heard apparently she is here tomorrow. I thought
it
was leaving day today.
So we have more time.
Logos. Yeah. Okay, awesome. Let me jump in. And first of all, thank you for sharing that. That was absolutely awesome.
Hopefully it was useful.
Yeah, mega useful. And I mean, I think the fact everyone on the call has been scribbling notes and I've been taking mental notes the whole time proves that. Okay, so Danny asks, on average, how long does this process take you? How long should we expect it to take for the whole process, start to finish?
So do you mean in terms of creating a brief or a logo design process?
I think he means everything just covered, as in the start to finish, kicking off the questionnaire and the brief and getting to clarity, but not actually.
Yeah, so it depends how you go about this process. So and your price, because if you're only going to be spending a few hours on your whole project, you don't really want to be spending so much time going through this brief. So if you do it as like a workshop, that could take you, half a day to go through your client. But most of the time, what I do is I actually just send over the questionnaire, leave it with the client, and then they come back to me. So from my perspective, that initial thing is just basically sending over that email to request the information. The client's already paid, project's kicked off, by the way. So sending over that questionnaire, that's 2 minutes for me. That's a quick thing. I use template emails, like I said, and then the client sends all of that information back over. Hopefully I've got everything I need, but if there's any holes in the questionnaire, there might potentially need to be a telephone conversation or follow-up emails to gather that information together. But for me, I mean, in terms of creating that, if everything's on the client, it might only just take a few hours, because all I'm doing is taking the answers in the questionnaire and putting it down into bullet points. So I'm not writing that whole thing. I'm just taking their answers. But like I said, if you do take the route of having a conversation, for example, you might have a more expensive process where there's more, physical telephone conversations or, video meetings like this. You might want to give, half a day to just the conversations, and then you need to be scribbling down notes and then process those notes into more. So it kind of depends on your side, how much you're charging your client. If you're charging them a higher amount, I'd recommend having a meeting. But if you're at the cheaper end, I would just send the questionnaire and take the approach that I said at the beginning.
Perfect. Janek, and I presume on our team, Janek, said, where did your passion for logo design start?
Well, I've always been quite passionate about drawing and doing art and stuff like that. Like as a kid, we used to have competitions at school to do the little tickets for the pantomimes and stuff like that we used to do at school. And nice. About 60% of the time I would win. And I just loved it, because you could do a little drawing for it. But in terms of logo design, so I was for a number of years, I was working for a medical company, working on print-based work, and I loved graphic design in general. But where the passion for logo design started was after I worked on a computer game at home. So we did this iPhone game called Goohoo, and it was a really long-term project because I was doing all the artwork for all the backgrounds, all the little animations bits and pieces. It took years to do that project. And after I did that, I just wanted some other project to work on, but I didn't want a long-term project like that. I just wanted short-term projects that I could dip in and out of. And my partner at that time, she said to me, Ian, you're really good at logo design. You know, I'd worked on lots of different types of graphic design, but she felt that I had the talent for logo design. And at that time, I loved doing illustration. I really loved doing technical illustration for that medical company. And I not only did I like illustration, but I like the technical side of it. So with things like I've been working on a lot of e-commerce website design. I actually find it more interesting working out the structure of the website from a technical perspective than I do working on the actual artsy side of it, making. And I feel that logo design is a nice balance between these two things. So for me at that time, it seemed like a good project. But what really sparked the passion was probably my Twitter account, because the following kept growing, and I kind of felt a commitment.
Have a little humble brag.
Yeah, I felt the commitment to the audience, so I kept sharing more content. So I kept reading about Lego design and sharing it, and then I started reading books, and I just got really obsessed by it. And that obsession has grown. So the fact that I do have
sorry to embarrass you here.
Sorry.
Ian has now got 95,000 people on Twitter following him, talking about logo design. So it doesn't matter if you're a bit more specialized, you can still get an audience, guys. I love it. Ian, have you got time for one more?
Yeah, I'm happy to carry on. I've got time.
Amazing. Epps just said, I wish I had a British accent. It would make me sound smarter in meetings with clients. I could take it, but it wouldn't be great.
Oh my God.
Graphic design. Can we get a little James Bond? Okay. Let me just have a quick look through. So will it be available for review later? Gideon says yes, it will. Check out on our Learn section on the website and our YouTube. Bogdan has quite a good question, actually. How can you get clients in the beginning? Something a lot of people struggle with.
So my very first clients were friends and family. So one thing that I tend to find that a lot of people start stressing and they start building a website and a portfolio and all this other stuff, but they forget to just ask the people around them, in their current network, if there's anything that they can do. So, just letting your friends and family know that you've started this graphic design business and you're looking for clients, you'll hopefully get clients. I mean, they're not always going to be the highest paying ones, but if you physically just want to start working with clients and build up a portfolio and get paid for that work, your current direct network is the best place to start. And that's what I did. And the great thing with that is that you can you get real projects, you can create real case studies, you can get real testimonials, and you can build content around that on your website. And the more of that type of thing that you do, you can get inbound leads from your website, from people that have found you online. But definitely your first clients, I would recommend to reach out to your current network rather than trying to find business owners that you don't know.
Yeah, it's exactly what I did with web and branding design, where it was so it's like my cousin's parents' friend owns a bar. It wouldn't have to be your direct next to kin or something.
Someone might know someone. Because I can imagine most people watching this has 50 friends on Facebook, old friends from school or whatever. If you was to put a post out on your Facebook page that would take you 10 minutes saying, I've just started a new business, I'm currently looking for clients, does anyone know anyone that might need something? And people talk, people have friends. Someone might say, oh, I know Dave down the road, he's got a business, I'll see if he wants anything. And that might be your first client.
And don't be afraid to go more direct than that as well. I know it can be a little bit awkward. but generally just a social media post that will get seen, but people don't typically respond. So going personal and literally calling up people, you know, hey, haven't caught up in a while. Like, I hope you don't mind me asking, but I'm doing this new thing, and like I'm talking to a few people I know, and like I'd appreciate like any help if you know anyone. And going direct to your friends and acquaintances might feel a bit uncomfortable, but I guarantee it's going to convert better than just kind of hoping people come to you.
Yeah, I mean, there's longer term strategies like working on things like SEO and stuff like that. But if you have just literally started and you have nothing to show on your website, or nothing, you know, no clients at the moment, working with your current network is the best place to start.
100%. And I can see Dave in the comments talking about it. Dave is he's recently got like his first ever paying job.
Yay, that's amazing.
On Fiverr, so really proud of him and happy for him. But I know he's currently in those early days of struggling to get clients. So I almost want to be like, anyone needs some affordable brand work, like go and talk to Dave, and use your online friends and network as well. Because I know a lot of the people in the comments. I know a lot of them personally through Instagram and so on. And if someone needs a kid's illustration, I'm going to recommend Paul now. Like if I get any of these questions. So simply making those connections and being the person that springs to mind when a friend or someone you're chatting to, you know, if someone asks for a logo, I would genuinely just refer you, Ian.
Yeah, that's good. Good for me. Yeah, I just wanna add to this. Like, I've got really good Google results now, and I mean that's come as a result of ongoing work. But so what I would recommend is, you know, for those that are starting, get into the routine of, at the end of the project, write a case study and put it on your website, and then that will build up a whole body of online content that people can look at. You know, if you go to some kind of networking event and, you know, you've got a business card with your website on, it's good for that, you know, people coming directly. But long term, the long-term value of creating content on your website is that it will get indexed by Google, and it will add to that. So if you just get into the routine of, at the end of every project, writing a case study, it all builds up in the long run.
Yep, most definitely. Top tip. Just because we love you guys at home, even though I'm afraid I have to run in a second, let's squeeze one final bonus question in. And this is from Pam, who asks, how many logo versions do you generally present? And she's trying to figure out like what's too many and what's too few.
Okay, so this is a debate I've had on my podcast with a number of different people. I personally, here today, present 3. And I'll be honest, the main reason why I've done it that way is because that's how they used to do it at the agency that I worked at. And I kind of stuck with that. But I've spoken with different people. Aaron Draplin, he presents hundreds of options. I wouldn't recommend that. I like, I would either present 2 or 3 or present one solution. And the one logo process requires you to do certain things. And I have a podcast episode with Melissa Yeager, who takes that approach. And we also reference a guy called Sean McCabe, who has a whole load of content around the one logo approach. But if you are going to do the one logo approach, I would make sure that you have a lot of experience under your belt, because you really need to have the confidence that everything that you are presenting to the client does solve that. So I am considering taking the one logo approach.
That's like a design mic drop, isn't it?
But I spoke to Brian Collins recently. He runs the agency Collins, and I asked him about how many logos he presents. And he told me this whole story about it's all or nothing. And if you do present one and they don't want that one, or they don't like that one, or they're not going to approve that one for whatever reason, you have nothing else to compare it with. So at Collins, they present 2 or 3. And the reason why is because if they got 2 options to go with, and they choose one, he says that, first of all, having two options, they can go with that one or that one. It's not that one and nothing. But it solidifies their choice when they do choose that one, because they definitely don't want the other one. So there's no set way of doing this. It's kind of up to you how many you would want to present. But personally, here today, I present 3, but I am considering taking the route of the one logo approach. But I do need to update all of my marketing material and everything that goes with it. So,
here's a revolutionary idea, guys. Present 3 and make 2 of them deliberately terrible. So the one looks gleaming and amazing by comparison. I bet some people do that.
Yeah, but the client will pick.
That was the joke, guys.
One of the rubbish ones. Some people do that, though. Some people do that. Yeah, the client will always pick the rubbish one. Yeah.
Good point, guys.
One thing I really want to stress: if you present options, present 3 strong options. So you could take the client, get them to close their eyes and spin around in a chair and point at the one that they want. The one that they would go with would be effective for them. Don't present any option that you feel just isn't going to work. If you feel it's not going to work, don't show it, or continue working on more.
Don't just make up the numbers.
Yeah, don't show 1 good one and 2 really bad ones. That's not going to work.
Yeah. Perfect. Guys, thank you so much for being so active in the comments today. I can see everyone really, really enjoyed this session. Ian, thank you again. I know when we posted your episode on the Honest Designers show, it was one of our most popular, your logo masterclass. So if anyone hasn't watched and listened to that, be sure to go check it out. But as always, you've brought tremendous value, and I appreciate your time so much.
You're welcome. And thanks everyone for watching. It's been really fun doing this.
I could talk all day about this stuff with you.
Yeah,
so.
I think if anyone does have any questions, you guys have got a Facebook group, haven't you?
Yeah, let me...
I'm happy to carry on answering questions.
Thank you. Have we got Raluca over there somewhere? Or is she out back, guys? Hello. Can we set up a thread in the Facebook group where Ian answers more questions because he's keen to help people? That'd be amazing, please. Thank you.
Sure, you're welcome.
Let me just put a link. And for people that don't know, if you can't remember the whole URL of like Facebook / all the rest of it, check this out, designcutscommunity.com.
I just noticed what Angela said. She wants me to do a sleep story for the Calm app. Do I have a calming voice?
I use the Calm app, and you would be a great fit for that.
That's hysterical.
Dinosaur shirt. That would be amazing. You should do that. You've got a lovely voice. You do. I think you should definitely get into the meditation space.
It's hysterical.
Mate, thank you so much. Everyone in the comments, be sure to click the shiny green button below the video. Go check out Ian's website. It is a treasure trove of logo design resources. And also check out in the comments section, designcutscommunity.com. If you're not part of the Facebook group, go hang out there. It's full of lovely creative people, and Ian's going to be stepping in there.
I'm going to hop in there now and answer anyone's questions.
Incredible. Well, someone on the team over there is going to start up a thread where we can get the questions going today. But appreciate it, Ian, and we'll hopefully see you back on this show at some point.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to come back anytime.
Amazing. Thanks, mate. And everyone, we appreciate you being here. Talk to you soon.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.